Hello, I'm Gemma Fisher, a Border Collie training and behaviour expert, here to help you bring out the best in your dog. Whether you're tackling reactivity, recall struggles, or just want to understand your collie better, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about making your life with your collie easier, with practical advice, hands-on solutions, and a good dose of encouragement every step of the way. And don't forget, if you want even more support, head over to our Facebook group. That's where you'll find my weekly live Q&A session, exclusive training guides, and a community of collie owners just like you. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about what possibilities lie in your future with your reactive collie, based on people who've been where you are now. So grab a cuppa, get yourself comfy, and let's get started. Now, if you've ever thought, my collie is too much, it's just, they are just too much, or we're never going to get there, I want you to hear this loud and clear because it's important. You may need to write this down. Your dog is not a lost cause. All right. I've worked with many different border collies and their owners. And the thing that comes across about all of the different, people and dogs I've worked with is that there is always a reason for behavior. That is one of the absolute key pieces to take away from this episode. There's always a reason for behavior. And whether or not you are someone who is on your first border collie, or whether or not you are somebody that has had border collies all their lives and now is struggling with this particular one, it's basically to tell you not to panic because everything is figure outable. I learned that one from a lady called Marie Forleo. Look her up. She's a brilliant, brilliant woman. But yes, the word figure outable, I think, is a really good word to have in mind when you're working with a tricky border collie. Now, let me tell you a little bit about some of my students, just to give you an idea of where they were and where they are now, to possibly give you a little bit of hope and encouragement about where you are now and the possibilities for how that might change. Now, as I say, have worked with a variety of different, border collies and their people. And some, like I say, are on first border collies and first dog as well. Like it's a baptism of fire, that one, being both first dog, but also being a border collie. As well as working with people who have had border collies, like I say, all their lives, and they're just struggling with this particular one. But one of my students in particular who really stands out, you'll be able to see a video of him actually on my YouTube channel. And that is Steve and Orla. And Steve came to me as a first-time border collie owner, but like I say, also a first-time owner too. And Steve is a wonderful person. I was lucky enough to get to go and spend some quality time with both him and his family up in Yorkshire just back in April of 2025. And what was really nice about working with Steve in person, as well as I've been working with him online for about a year up until that point, a bit more than a year, was that Steve has a really high bar for what he wants to achieve with Orla. I got the impression actually when I worked with him in person was that he's like that in all areas of his life. And I can really get on board with that because I think I'm probably a bit like that too. But the thing that I definitely have to watch, and the thing that I try and watch for Steve as well, is that perfectionism can be a bit of an issue in terms of getting in the way of all the things that we're doing right, because all we can really see are the things that maybe aren't going so well. And like I say, one of the nice things about working with him in person was getting to see, all the wonderful things he's doing with Orla. For a person that has a first dog and a first border collie at that, it's just like it's really impressive, the relationship that they've got going, and all of the things that Orla is capable of doing. And like I say, Steve, I think, does know those things, but often focuses on those things where he's like, oh, but that could be better. Oh, that could be better. And like I say, I hear him on that. I'm very much like that myself. But one of the things that he certainly said to me was that, back when we first started working together, he had dipped in and out of different things like YouTube channels. He'd been to a few different classes. Like he was trying to get the information and piece it all together himself. And the one thing that he was particularly struggling with, which has really bothered him, is sort of really confident and good loose lead walking, and having a dog that he can take out anywhere and not have to worry about, her pulling in all directions and that being an issue. And one of the things that he said to me recently was that he's gone from doubting that ability to walk on a loose lead to being really much more confident. and the two of them trusting each other more. And that's actually one of the pieces that really got to me. The fact that they're trusting each other more. It isn't just a question of him trusting her, because it's a relationship, isn't it? It's a two-way street. And one of the things that I know to be true is that when we start to work together and we start to see the world, as it is really, as a team sport with our dogs, then what we start to see is that our dogs respond to that as well. So he told me that she now checks in more, even when she's around unknown dogs, where normally she might have bolted directly to them. She's now checking in. She's making sure that he's what should she do in those situations. It's like I say, it's this lovely trust that is growing both ways. It isn't just coming from Steve's end of the lead, it's coming from both ways, which is really nice. And I've also worked with people like Sue and Kia. Now, Sue has had Border Collies for a long time, and I first met her in a workshop with her lovely dog. And I think it would be fair to say, I hope Sue wouldn't mind me saying this, that she was feeling a bit downhearted when I first met her, because she explained to me that, generally Kia for her was somewhat unpredictable. She would bark uncontrollably in something like rally classes, and she'd always done stuff with her previous dogs, wanting to do things like, dog sports and bits and pieces with them. But of course, you can't do dog sports with a dog that is just kicking off at the sight of other dogs, because you're going to be in group class situations, competitions, or, there's going to be other dogs around, etc., etc. So when she told me recently, this is one of the things that I was just like, not astonished, because I know this stuff works, but just the amount of progress that they've made just in changing a few things, really checking in on the details of the things that Kia needs to understand in order to be able to improve. I was just thrilled for her, really, that she said that she'd gone from this sort of barking uncontrollably in her rally classes to calmly qualifying. So this being at a competition, calmly qualifying in a level 1 situation after learning just the focus and recovery techniques that we have been working on. And like I say, I know this stuff works, but when you are working with someone who has been doing it a long time, I think it's particularly sweet to be able to help them, because that they have a lot of knowledge to bring to the table. And it's really just a question of digging into that knowledge. It's possibly finding where there might be little holes where you need to, to plug things in. But being able to take them from not being able to do things with their dogs to being able to go out and get involved in things in the way that they always have, that for me is a really big win. And of course, it's a work in progress. Is it like Kia will never bark at another dog again? Probably not. I think that would be unfair to expect, but the improvement is always the thing that we're after, and we're always looking to move into this direction of confidence and clarity for the dog, and just overall improving that relationship and that trust, from one end of the lead to the other. And one of the things that, like I said at the beginning, there's always a reason for behavior. One of the things that I often am in the unenviable, I guess, position to be doing is really putting forward the case from the dog's perspective about how physical health is so important to them being able to bring their best selves to the party. Okay. So I can't imagine. I have been, touch wood, very, very lucky with my dog's health. I say this, I've had 2 dogs that have had broken legs. I've had 1 dog that lost a leg in a car accident. So I say lucky with, some question mark there. But for the most part, I've learned a lot in the past couple of years about how important nutrition and diet and gut health is to mental health and well-being in dogs. And in learning all about this, it's really interesting for me as a trainer, and it's brilliant for me to be able to take that knowledge forward to my students. But, and here's the big but, it often means having to, remind people that actually if their dog is struggling physically, then they are not going to be able to bring their best selves to the party. And it is going to be probably a longer and more frustrating road to go down and to walk. The person that springs to mind when I think about gut health particularly is my student Anne and her little dog Tiggy. I've worked with Anne mostly online, but I did get to meet Tiggy at a workshop recently, and she's just a sweetheart. She's just a very nice young border collie, but she's, bless her heart, she's had some terrible gut health issues to do with Giardia, and I was sad for Anne. The other day, she messaged to say that things had been going so much better, and so it was really disappointing that when they retested for Giardia, the test had come back positive, and it breaks my heart for her because I know how hard she's working and I know how much advice that she's following. So really difficult. But on the plus side, there are still wins happening in and amongst these difficult times. And that's the thing that, when I work with students, that's often what my job is to remind them that there is still good stuff happening. So she recently told me that she managed to recall Tiggy away from a sheep. Huge deal, like really big deal. She didn't chase. She just, she'd made that progress from, being completely fixated to being able to recall away from a sheep. Really big deal, which is huge. But one of those things that often will happen is that we get these brilliant moments, like these really big, exciting moments, but they can be hidden in and amongst the day-to-day stuff of, the issue that particularly Anne has with Tiggy is that because of her gut health issues, food is not a big motivator for Tiggy because of the fact that actually her gut is probably has been uncomfortable for quite a while. So, if you feel a bit in yourself, you're not necessarily going to want to to take nice tidbits and things. And that means that it's quite difficult then to do some of our training because food and reinforcement using food is quite a big part of how we do things. You can do lots with toys. I should say that you can do lots with toys. But what I like to do is start with food in order that we can get some really good base behaviors in place before we start adding the pressure of adrenaline and excitement, which normally toys produce, particularly in border collies who get very excited about their ballies. So that's sometimes my job is to remind people that there is good stuff happening in and amongst the weeds. It's just that sometimes those weeds are coming at us thick and fast. And, like I say, that's where we really do have to pay attention to is good stuff happening. And one of the things that I've said to students that I've been working with for a while is what about having a calendar up on the wall and having some stickers? Go along to your local WH Smith or your local newsagents and get some little stickers and have green, orange and red ones, and on that calendar overall across the course of the day, was today a good day? And if it's a good day, pop a green sticker on the calendar. And if it was some good stuff happened, but some not so good stuff happened, maybe that's an orange day. And maybe it's a day where nothing has really gone right and we're just glad to get to the end of it. Those days happen too. Maybe that's a red sticker day. And the purpose of having that calendar is that when we look back over the course of a month, we go, do you know what? Are we getting more green days? Are we getting more orange days? Because if we're not, then, if it's mostly red ones, then we're not on the right track and we need to think about changing something. But often what we start to see when we do this calendar process is that actually we are headed in the right direction. It might not be really fast progress. And let's be honest, all of us, I think, would like a magic wand. I often say to people when I start working with them, I'm really sorry, I haven't got a magic wand here in my training bag. I wish I did. But what is the thing that you would most like to achieve? Magic wand time, what would you most like to achieve? And then that's our goal. And it might be a goal which is like right at the top of a very big mountain. But as long as we can see that we're taking steps towards that and we're making progress towards that, then that's gold. That's the thing that we're really looking to happen. And talking of like big mountains to climb, one of my students, Jackie, with her border collie Monty, beautiful, handsome, black and white dog. In fact, I shouldn't use the word beautiful because he's handsome rather than beautiful. But when Jackie first started working with me, Monty used to properly panic over fireworks. I think, there's lots of Border Collies that worry about fireworks, absolutely. But the issue around Monty's worries about fireworks were that whilst he was panicked at the time, he would then also, that panic would carry through, between 3 and 6 months after the event, which is a real issue when you consider that you might just be getting Monty back to normal when, the next set of fireworks is due to start, happening again, kind of thing. So I'll be honest, when I first started working with them, I was worried. I thought, what, this, Jackie has been very responsible. She's gone along to her veterinary surgeon. She's explored different pharmaceutical, medications to be able to potentially help Monty with this issue. And nothing really had helped. And in fact, some of the medications, and I have found this with some of the Border Collies that I work with, that the medications sometimes can have a negative impact as much as they're supposed to have a positive one, or they can have kind of a sedative quality, which then means that we don't necessarily our dog is sort of flattened as opposed to we've helped them as such. It isn't that they are less worried about the thing, it's just that they are slightly, some things can have a slightly sedative quality, so the dog is maybe not so aware of things. So I'll be honest, when I first started working with them, I thought, this could be a bit of a tricky one. But we treated it like I treat all of my training and behavior cases. And we go, okay, let's look under every rock, right? Let's explore everything. Let's try this. All right, this has had a little bit of a good effect. Perfect. Right, let's try this next thing. Oh, that didn't really have very much of an effect. One of the examples of the things that didn't have quite such a good effect, which Jackie reminded me of recently when we were talking about it, was she was one of my guest speakers suggested to her to use her Alexa and to set the Alexa playing some white noise, some brown noise, some background noise, basically, to help him with his sort of day-to-day noise phobias and worries. And it got to the point that she would start saying Alexa to tell Alexa to do something, and Monty only had to hear that, and then he would be running upstairs and hiding under the bed. So that was not an approach that worked for him. Now, it's worked for lots of other dogs that I work with. So it isn't a question of it's bad advice. It's just that it's advice that didn't work for Jackie. And that's what's so lovely is that, like I say, we no stone is left unturned. We try different things, and we look over the course of time. Are we getting progress? Now, one of the things that happened recently that was very exciting, and actually there's been a few occasions where he has definitely shown that he was not so worried about firework noise as he has been previously. And that is that he slept through some fireworks. Now, normally she has this game that she plays with him. It's called the towel game. It's their fun game that they play together. It's essentially, it raises his adrenaline levels, gets him all worked up so that the firework noise or noises in the background don't bother him so much. So normally she has the towel game. If she knows that fireworks are happening, she will, get medication from the vet, in addition to the herbal supplements that she now gives him. And, it's been going quite well. But recently, with no prep, with no towel game, he didn't panic. He just kind of slept through it. It was bizarre. And, she came into our community Facebook group and told everybody, and like everybody is celebrating, because we all know what a big deal it is that Monty didn't need his towel game, and he, didn't have his normal medications and whatnot. So for that to happen is just brilliant. But it really goes to show that when we focus on not just training the dog, but we look at overall everything that is going on in that dog's life, that we can really make some significant progress, which isn't just the same as managing them for the rest of their life. It is about making progress that takes us into like a new phase in our lives with them, which is really important. And another dog that I remember starting work with that made me sort of worried on their behalf as much as it was on my behalf as a trainer, and thinking, how can I best help you? Was a lovely family, Colin with his lovely black and white Border Collie Poppy. Now, she had some real trauma In fact, the family had, to be fair. So Colin and his wife had there were two separate occasions where Poppy had been attacked by another dog, and on in one of the attacks, the only thing that saved her life was her collar around her neck, because it was a big sort of a big bully type dog, large. The bully bit is not necessarily important in terms of like they are more aggressive or whatever. I don't mean that, but just to give you an idea of physically quite a big sized dog, and XL type bully, like big. And they got Poppy's neck. The dog had got Poppy's neck in his mouth, and basically the collar had prevented his tooth going through, still marked her neck, but didn't go through and, fortunately, cut into her jugular vein. So super scary, super, super scary. And I remember Holly Barker is one of our guest speakers. She comes in and she talks about nutrition to club members. And she, in one of the sessions where he was asking for help and advice, she talked about the fact that she said, you imagine if she was a human being and something like a knife attack, something like, being held at gunpoint, those kinds of things. Imagine if that was a human being. That's kind of what Poppy had been through. And that really got me. I was like, yeah. I mean, sometimes I think we just expect dogs to get over stuff, don't we? But Poppy was traumatized. And as a result of being traumatized, she just was not so much fun to live with. She was barkier. She was reacting to things. I mean, understandably, I think mostly if you look at it as if she had been a human being, I think you would begin to be a bit more understanding. But what happened over the course of working together over a year was that we went from a very traumatized dog to one that was happy, that was relaxed. He posted a video of a young dog coming up and being a bit of a nuisance and having to be retrieved. And Poppy just going, oh, just, take it away, but not reacting, not being over the top, and also not being shut down as well. So I think that's important as well. Sometimes when we see dogs that trainers claim are fixed, I'm not even sure what fixed means exactly, but when we see them, sometimes it's not that they're fixed, it's just that they're really shut down and they're not really responding to the environment. I don't want those sorts of dogs. I want dogs that are, aware of what's going on and they're okay with what's going on. That's my ultimate goal for dogs. And like Colin said, like it took a year. It took a year of looking under those stones and trying different things out and adding things like herbal supplements to her diet. And he also worked on aromatherapy oils. That was one of the things that one of the guest speakers, Caroline Ingraham, that I had in to talk to the club, her information took us those few steps forward as well. And the key thing that he said to me was that every step along the way, all of them mattered, and they all kind of added up to this overall change in Poppy, which is just, it's just brilliant. Colin's recently become a granddad, and he posted a photo of Poppy with his new granddaughter, and really exciting to know that Poppy's on the right track now, and she's she's at the heart of a family where she should be, and that she's enjoying life, and that she can go out and enjoy family stuff with them without that trauma hanging on in the background. Now, the thing that you might be surprised to know, I'm going to tell you just about a few dogs that I work with that are not border collies. Shock horror. And I tell you this because sometimes I get messages from people and they are quite apologetic about the fact they're contacting me, because they're like, recently I've had a club member join and she said, he's not a full collie, he's a Dalmatian cross collie. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. I have a Dalmatian cross collie in the club. It's, it's not an issue. Collie crosses are welcome to Collie Culture Club. That's not a problem. It's just anybody joining has to understand that, it does have quite a border collie focus. That's the that's the thing to bear in mind. But one of my students, Gemma with Roma, Roma's actually a Romanian street dog. She's predominantly collie, they think. It's hard to know, isn't it? Because, she's a street dog, but she looks relatively collie-like, and they think is predominantly collie. And when we started working together, and we only started working together, I think, beginning of February 2025, that's right. And I'm recording this in sort of May time. She said it's one of the best things that she's ever done. She's been working, I think Roma is now 4 years old, and she's been very anxious and reactive throughout her whole life. It is medicated, does have help from the vet with medication. But she's gone from being this really anxious and reactive dog to settling more quickly, to enjoying walks more, and being noticeably happier at home. Now, does that mean she is problem free and we have fixed Roma? No, it doesn't mean that we fixed Roma, because she wasn't broken. She's struggling still in some situations to be able to cope. So what we're working on is giving her more coping strategies and giving Gemma more coping strategies for when Roma says, this is hard. And there are still stones that need to be turned over in terms of things like whether or not pain is an issue and whether or not there is anything else going on for her that we need to check out. But what we're interested in always, and that is my primary motivation when I work with people, is, are we making progress in the direction we want to get to? That's the key thing. That's the really important piece. And students like Deborah and Merlin, who, again, not a Border Collie, he's a smooth collie. For those of you that don't know about smooth collies, they're essentially the less hairy version of the lassie dogs, the rough collies, and they're alert and vocal. I looked this up on Google, and it came back with, they are alert and vocal, making them both good watchdogs if well trained. Well, as Deborah, I think, would tell you, Merlin has a lot of opinions, and yes, would make a brilliant watchdog, but possibly is a little bit overzealous in his watchdogness. She talks about his reactivity, the spinning and the barking. Anybody that's had a Border Collie that has done that spinning, Merlin likes to fit in around the collie world. So yeah, spinning, barking. But he's got to the point where, despite the fact that he loves giving a squirrel his opinion, he's managed to calmly walk past squirrels. He's ignored runners, because things like that have really bothered him in the past, where, should that person be there? I want to see, their credentials and whether or not it's safe. And even a ball launcher dog in the woods, like somebody with one of those ball throwers. So amazing progress. But I think Deborah would be one of the first people to tell you is, it's not like, you click your fingers and suddenly everything's all better. It's about lots of little things that they've been doing together, and they've all built up to the point where he's feeling more confident, he's feeling calmer. And then the really lovely side effect for Deborah is that when Merlin's feeling safer and he's feeling more confident and more comfortable, she's starting to feel like that too, which is really cool. And I was lucky enough to meet both of them at a workshop while I was in Yorkshire, because they're up north, whereas I'm down south. But it was lovely to meet them in person and see actually in person how much work Deborah has put in, and to be able to see it live, that was a very cool moment for me. And unfortunately, I probably won't get to meet Maisie. Only Joe's Maisie is in Australia, and she's not a Border Collie either. She again was very apologetic when she first got in touch, but she's a Whippet Staffy cross. They're not entirely sure what Maisie is, but Joe, when she introduced her to me in my free Facebook group, she said, I rescued her, but really I think she rescued me. And I think that anybody that's ever rescued a dog before would probably understand the truth in those words. I think that's a lovely sentiment. But she went from being quite skeptical about whether or not online training would work, because Joe and I are literally on different sides of the world, so I think a little bit of skepticism is fair. But from that sort of, initial skepticism, she's gone to seeing real glimpses of change. And she is, I think more or less every week she's got something to tell me in our club group about something that she and Maisie have done this week, whether or not it's they've joined a new training class, or they've been to a cafe, or they've met with friends. There's something in that week where the things that they've been doing, the layers of training that they've been building in, how those things have meant that they have been out and about in the world and they've been having a nice time together, which is really what it's all about. And I think that's probably why reactivity is so hard, because reactivity tends to make our world smaller. It tends to mean that we don't get to enjoy the activities with our dogs that we maybe had in mind when we first got them. And it just means that we're not probably spending as much time having positive experiences with our dogs as potentially we are either trying to avoid negative ones or negative ones happening. So I thought long and hard about what I wanted my message in this episode to be, because I don't want anybody to think, like I say, that we're about fixing dogs, because, like I said, I don't think your dog is broken. I don't think any dogs are broken. I think that they are overwhelmed. I think that they are struggling. And I think that often to get to the point where they are more comfortable and they are more confident, it does take knowing the right questions to ask, and then knowing where to go to explore those things, and being able to have kind of a network of people like canine osteopath, canine physiotherapist, canine massage therapist, nutrition support. It's about an overall you're looking at the overall picture, because change isn't magic. Like, it really isn't magic. It's moment by moment progress stacked up over time. That's what makes the difference. And like I say, I mean, you need to make sure that those moments that you're adding up are headed you in the right direction. That's where our calendar system works really well. But the biggest thing is that your relationship with your border collie can really completely transform when you meet your collie where they're at, as opposed to where you had maybe hoped that they would be, maybe where you want them to be, when you just meet them where they're at. And often I think people struggle with that because they feel like they might be allowing their dog to behave badly, or pandering to them, or something. But in my experience, when I've worked with dogs that are feeling anxious or overwhelmed, the fastest progress that I've made with those dogs is usually about saying to them, yeah, I hear you. Like, that seems pretty tough. I can see why you feel like that. Do you want a bit of space? Do you want to move away from this? And the thing that I found is that normally when I do that with dogs, that what happens is that they go, oh, you hear me, like you understand, like you're seeing the world from my point of view. And then they start to feel safer, because there's nothing safer than being with someone that understands where you're at and is prepared to meet you where you're at. So just as important as it is in human relationships, so too with our relationships with our dogs as well. And the thing about, all of the people I've talked about today, all of the lovely people that I work with, and hopefully have shared some of their successes as they've worked through training struggles and issues with their dogs. If they can do it, you can too. There's no reason why you can't do it as well. Absolutely none. Because the people that I've talked about today are a broad section of Border Collie owners, and like I've said, some non-Border Collie owners. They're a broad section of some that have been first-time dog owners, some that have had dogs for a long time. It's about knowing the right questions to ask, and then it's about knowing where we have to go off and do our research. So yeah, if they can do it, you can too, definitely. Now, 3 practical steps that I want you to take away from today. All right. So number 1 is I want you to find what works for your dog. All right. Now, what works for others may not work for you, and that's totally okay. What I want you to think about is trying different approaches and observe what helps your dog learn and feel safe. All right. Not what anybody else's does, but what your dog finds, easier to learn and feel safe. All right. Number 2, I want you to celebrate the small wins. All right. Did they check in once instead of chasing? All right. Even if it was just once and the rest of the walk they didn't. If they checked in once, that's a small win, and we like those. Did you manage to walk 5 steps without them pulling? Another win. Another marble for the jar, as we say in collie culture land. It's gold dust. When they do those little moments, it's gold dust. Don't wait for perfect. Perfect doesn't exist anyway. What we're looking for is progress. And lastly, I want you to think about staying consistent. We talk an awful lot about the things that our dogs should be doing, don't we? But it's really important to think what we should be doing from our end of the lead as well. Now, real change doesn't come from a perfect session. Like I say, perfection doesn't exist. All right. What does happen is that if we keep showing up again and again with that patience, with that curiosity about what it's like from our dog's point of view, that is the thing that will move the needle forward. I promise. I've seen it happen over and over again. I think the final thing that I just want to maybe finish with is the magic isn't in having the perfect dog. Like I've said many times, perfection doesn't exist. The magic is in learning together. It's about learning together. And what I know to be true from my own experience with reactivity with Vodka, one of my Border Collies, who is now 10 and a half at the time of this podcast being recorded, is that, her at 10 and a half is very different to what she was like at 10 and a half months. But at 10 and a half years old, it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And I think that some of the reason that our relationship is as wonderful and as life affirming to me as it is now is because of the struggles that we had early on, because we had to work through those things together. And in working through those things together, I have a bond with that dog that I wouldn't trade. Absolutely wouldn't trade. You wouldn't be able to take her from me. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. I hope this episode gave you the insight and motivation to make real progress with your collie. A big shout out to today's sponsor, Collie Culture Club, my online training membership designed to give you the personalised support you need. Inside the club, you'll get my expert feedback on your training, weekly live sessions with me and guest experts, and a supportive community to help you every step of the way. Don't forget, you can find all about the details of the club, plus the resources mentioned in today's episode inside our Facebook group. So be sure to check it out. And that's a wrap for season 3 of Collie Conversations. I'll be back towards the end of May, beginning of June, with more episodes packed with collie training wisdom, tips and fun. So keep an ear out. And in the meantime, enjoy your training adventures with your collie. And for the final time this season, don't forget to stay focused on progress, not perfection. And remember, every small win counts.